Well, let's unpack this one. Imagine you're hurtling through this vast, empty star desert, right? Hundreds of light years from anywhere significant, and then suddenly just poof, a whole planet blinks into existence. Right there.
Out of absolutely nowhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And on that planet, you find an entity. Well, unlike anything you've ever encountered before. So today, we're taking a deep dive into an audio log that actually chronicles just such an encounter. We're going to pull out the most astonishing bits of insight from a mission that went from totally routine to utterly bewildering, like in moments.
Yeah, it's quite the log.
So our source material for this deep dive, it's an unclassified audio log from the Starship Enterprise. It specifically details this uncharted encounter, one that really challenges, well, all conventional understanding. Our mission today is to try and understand the true nature of this incredibly powerful, but also, deeply enigmatic being.
And what that tells us.
Right. And what that tells about power itself, about perception,
Yeah.
and maybe most importantly, about maturity, but on a cosmic scale.
What's really fascinating here, I think, is watching how the Enterprise crew deals with this. I mean, these are people used to pushing boundaries, right? They operate at the edge of known science. But here, they had a situation where their basic laws of physics, even biology, they just don't apply anymore.
They just break down.
Completely. And it really raises a big question for all of us, I think. How do you classify something, or even just start to comprehend an intelligence that operates totally beyond your own scientific framework? It pushes them, and us listening, to confront not just scientific limits, but some really profound philosophical ones too.
Absolutely. And it all kicks off with what seemed like the most mundane trip imaginable. The Enterprise was on this totally straightforward journey, making good time, headed for Beta 6. That's a human colony about 8 days away at their speed.
The standard run.
Yeah, just a standard routine supply run, perfectly normal for a ship like the Enterprise. They were going through this region of space people often call a star desert. A huge, mostly empty void.
Right. Not exactly bustling.
No. And when you hear desert, you might think sand dunes, maybe an oasis, but like Dr. McCoy, the CMO, points out, they were 900 light years from that kind of desert.
Yeah.
This place, as Mr. Spock noted, is just a waterless, barren wasteland of space.
Devoid of pretty much everything. Nebulae, star systems, empty.
Exactly. So the job was simple. Get these critical supplies across this massive empty stretch and do it fast. Nothing, really, nothing could have seemed more routine.
And yet, it's right there in this zero space density, this definition of emptiness, that the impossible happens. According to their gravimetric readings, that's basically sensing mass, gravity fields, there had been no significant change, zero space density. Everything was stable, normal, boring even. Then instantly their sensors just light up. A sizable space displacement reading. Now, this wasn't something creeping up on long-range scans, something they might have missed.
No.
This thing just appeared. It was identified pretty quickly as iron silica body, planet size, magnitude 1e.
Which is big, right?
Oh, yeah. Magnitude 1e means a full-size planet. Huge. Something you'd normally detect light years away, so the idea that it just popped up, it was inconceivable to the crew. This massive body had gone unnoted on all our records.
I wasn't there.
It completely defied all their previous sensor sweeps, all the star charts, all known physics about mass just appearing. It didn't drift in. It just materialized right in their path.
And it wasn't just that it appeared out of thin air, which is baffling enough, but its actual nature. Well, that was even weirder. Initially, the Enterprise's long-range scans, they painted this truly hellish picture.
Yeah, not exactly welcoming.
No way. They showed an extremely hot, toxic atmosphere swept by tornadic storms, plus continuous volcanic eruptions just covering the surface. Mr. Georgier, the geophysicist, he reported it'd be deadly to any life form such as we know it without oxygen and life support systems.
So basically, instant death if you weren't protected.
Pretty much. You're talking about survival time of not very long, maybe minutes, if that. And yet, almost right away, their subspace communications, their main way to talk long range, get blocked.
Jammed.
Yeah, by a strong interference coming from this incredibly hostile world. And this interference, it wasn't just random noise. It suggested an active source, a natural radio source, which is a total paradox.
Really is. A seemingly lethal planet, totally inhospitable by their standards, is actively broadcasting these strong, organized signals. How does that even work?
Exactly.
And, if we connect this to the bigger picture, these weird signals were the very first, really unsettling clear that something deeply strange was going on. The contrast was just stark. almost absurd.
Yeah.
You've got this planet spitting fire and poison, hostile to all known life, but it's broadcasting these, like, whimsical phrases,
Right.
greetings and felicitations.
Like something out of an old play.
Yeah.
And then, yep, hurrah. And even tally-ho, it's this weird, almost theatrical cheerfulness that's completely at odds with the deadly reality their sensors were showing.
It is bizarre.
The crew's first thought, I think Mr. Dow suggested it, was maybe it was some kind of a joke. But like Jor's grim survival estimate made clear, this wasn't funny at all. It felt like some strange, dangerous bait-and-switch unfolding right there.
And it became terrifyingly real really fast when Captain Kirk and Helmsman Sulu just vanished right off the bridge.
Poof, gone.
1 second they're there, totally focused on steering the Enterprise away from this impossible planet. The next, just a flash, a shimmer, and they're gone. Just like that.
Wow.
You can just imagine the shock, the immediate chaos on that bridge. The ship's log, recorded just moments later, it captures that chilling finality. Stardate 2124.5. Captain Kirk and Helmsman Sulu remain unaccounted for.
And that instantly changes everything. The mission goes from routine supply run to desperate high-stakes rescue. It's this shocking, almost unbelievable disappearance. It just shattered the calm and really set the tone for everything that followed. The crew was suddenly facing the unknown, not just out there, but right there in their command center.
Yeah, given how utterly impossible everything was, the planet appearing, the weird signals. Now 2 officers just gone in. Spock's logic really cuts through the confusion. He says with that Vulcan precision, one thing is certain. Obviously, there's life on that planet.
Despite the sensors saying nothing could live there.
Exactly. Despite those dire geophysical reports, the signals, the disappearances, they implied a deliberate, intelligent force at work. So this prompts them to put together a landing party. And they choose carefully based on expertise.
Makes sense?
You've got Spock himself for logic and science, Dr. McCoy for medical assessment in what could be a totally alien, hostile environment, Mr. Jor Hager, the geophysicist, because he knows the reported conditions best, and Mr. Dell, carrying full communications, armament, and life support gear.
Covering the bases.
Right. And Spock, he's cautious. He voices concern about the rationality of Kirk or Sulu if those weird signals were actually from them. He's already suspecting some kind of manipulation.
Ah, interesting.
Which raises that key question. What kind of being could create such a fundamentally deceptive environment? One that lures you in, then seemingly traps you so easily. It's a mind bender right from the start.
So the landing party beams down to this planet, Gothos. They're fully expecting that hellscape, right? Tornadoes, volcanoes.
Brace for the worst.
Yeah. But instead, they find calm. This perfectly placid, almost peaceful scene. The atmosphere is exactly the same as ours. No storms, no lava. Just this little island of totally unexpected artificial peace.
Weird.
But here's the catch, the really chilling part. All their advanced Starfleet gear phasers, communicators, tricorders, everything, it immediately fails. It stops working. Dead. It doesn't function. We're cut off. It's this incredibly stark moment that just screams absolute control. The entity's control. They're stranded, lifeline to the Enterprise gone, totally at the mercy of whatever made this place.
And that control is put on display immediately, and it's disturbing. They find Kirk and Sulu just standing there, perfectly still, like waxworks figures, as the entity later calls them. He describes them as a perfectly exquisite display pair.
Like statues.
Exactly. It's not just that they're stunned or frozen. It's this weirdly artistic, whimsical manipulation of living beings. This is our first real glimpse of Trelane's unique brand of absolute power. What's fascinating is how he immediately shows control, not just over the environment, but over the actual physical state of people.
Freezing them in place.
Yeah, literally stopping them, freezing them in time and space, treating them like objects, like puppets for his amusement. It shows this profound lack of respect for their autonomy right off the bat.
And this entity, the one who just casually froze 2 Starfleet officers. Then he introduces himself. First, he's kind of grand, calls himself General Trelane, retired.
Okay, military angle.
Seems like it, but then he immediately corrects himself. Says he prefers the more quaint, almost aristocratic title, Squire Trelane.
Squire, okay.
And he seemed genuinely delighted, almost like a child, to have visitors. Which, considering he apparently just snatched them off their ship, is a really bizarre and unsettling reaction.
Yeah.
He acts like they just popped by for tea.
Yeah, that's off. His whole perspective on interaction seems completely warped from anything we'd consider normal.
Totally.
And this leads us to his peculiar hobby, or maybe obsession is a better word. He's intensely interested in watching Earth. He says pretty casually, "I've been looking in on the doings on your lively little Earth."
Okay, so he's an observer.
Right, but there's a huge error here, a really crucial detail that kind of hints his vast power might be, well, imperfect, or maybe just carelessly used. He says he's watching Earth from where he is, which is about 900 light years away.
Okay. But then he mentions his observations are of Earth 900 years past.
Wait, 900 years ago, so like medieval times.
Exactly. Not the 23rd century. And when Kirk points out this, massive time difference, Trelane just brushes it off. Oh, really? If I made an error in time, how fallible of me.
Just like that. Oops.
Pretty much. And this slip, it's not just a funny detail. It suggests this huge power he has is flawed. Or maybe he's just so far beyond our concept of time that a few centuries don't matter to him. It implies he has knowledge, but maybe not real understanding. He's just watching, not really getting it.
Huh. Interesting. And then he starts explaining his abilities, and they sound, well, almost unbelievable. He claims he's perfected a system by which matter can be transferred to energy and back to matter again.
Wow.
And then he almost dismisses the Enterprise's transporter, their cutting-edge tech, calling it a crude example of an infinitely more sophisticated process. Yeah, his description of his power, it's truly godlike, almost omnipotent. He doesn't just transport matter, which is already incredible. He says, we not only transport matter from place to place, but we can alter its shape at will.
Alter its shape.
At will. He explicitly says his drawing room, this whole Earth-like environment they're in, he created it by rearranging matter on this planet.
So he's taking the toxic sludge of Gothos and turning it into furniture.
Exactly. If you connect this to the bigger picture, Trelane isn't just teleporting stuff or making illusions. He's literally creating and recreating reality based on whatever he feels like at the moment, taking the raw, deadly elements of Gothos and shaping them into a breathable atmosphere, a fancy English drawing room, even those frozen figures of Kirk and Sulu.
That's mind-boggling power.
It completely transcends anything Starfleet has ever encountered. It's like active, real-time, cosmic interior decorating, but with potentially lethal consequences.
And what does this reality-shaping being want to know about humans? His first questions, his immediate curiosity, it's all about campaigns, your battles, your missions of conquest.
Ah, so violence again.
Yeah. He seems genuinely let down when Kirk pushes back, saying, our missions are peaceful, not for conquest. When we do battle, it is only because we have no choice. Trelane even dismisses that as just the official story, like he doesn't believe it.
His view of humanity seems really disturbing, doesn't it? And fundamentally flawed. It seems based on this very selective, violent slice of history. He observes, with this chilling lack of emotion, you're one of the few predator species that preys even on itself. Oof. And he seems to really admire figures like Napoleon, clearly drawn to their destructive side. His fascination with the phaser, which for Starfleet is a tool of last resort, is really unsettling. He gets its potential instantly, almost gleefully saying, why? This could kill millions. It really makes you wonder, right? Is his understanding just fundamentally warped because he's only seen old records of conflict filtered through his own maybe aggressive interests? Or is he deliberately trying to provoke them, trying to confirm his bias that humans are just violent conquerors? He seems totally unable to grasp concepts like peace or diplomacy.
And that disturbing view quickly leads to his first real, heavy-handed show of force. When Kirk's party, understandably creeped out, tries to leave, Trelane just stops them flat.
Yeah.
He says with this tone of, entitled annoyance, Tat, you're being quite rude. You can't go.
Like they're misbehaving children.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's clearly used to getting exactly what he wants, and any defiance is just rude. An inconvenience.
And he makes his power completely undeniable in this really chilling way. He doesn't just say no. He conjures up a visible sample of the atmosphere of this planet outside my kindly influence. He literally brings the deadly, toxic, volcanic outside into his drawing room for them to see. He uses this terrifying display to make sure they behave yourself hereafter. It just underscores the sheer, almost casual scale of his power, bringing the lethal environment inside his little bubble just to force them to obey. He uses fear, not reason, to dominate. It's a classic power play, sure, but done with cosmic ability. And it reveals, despite all that power, this profound immaturity, like a kid throwing a tantrum when they don't get their way, but with planet-level stakes.
So once they're well and truly trapped, it gets even clearer that Trelane's home is this weird mix of illusion and a really disturbing obsession with violence. He proudly shows off his collection. Battle flags and pennants dating back to the Crusades, to Hannibal's invaders, the Grecian war galleys, and the hordes of Persia.
Wow, quite the collection.
And he talks about it with this weird relish, imagining thousands of men marching off of their deaths, singing beneath these banners. It's a really macabre hobby, a museum dedicated to conflict.
Yeah, that connects right back to his warped view of history, doesn't it? He sees it all as this grand, bloody spectacle focusing only on the violence and conquest. It's incredibly selective, completely ignores all the art, science, culture, everything else that makes up human civilization.
Right.
It really shows his observational flaws, even with his supposed vast knowledge. He doesn't get the nuance, the full picture, just the dramatic, destructive parts, which he seems to think is all there is to humanity. He's like a cosmic voyeur with a really dark bias, just fascinated by destruction.
And that leads to maybe the most profound discovery about Trelane himself, something that just completely stumps Starfleet science.
Yeah.
Dr. McCoy, the practical doctor, he manages to get some readings on Trelane from a distance, and his finding is just bizarre.
Yeah.
Chilling, even.
What did he find? Or not find?
Exactly. He found no trace. Zero. Kirk asks, you mean it shows he's dead? And McCoy says, doesn't even show that he exists at all, alive or dead.
Whoa. Okay, that's fundamental.
Right. It defies everything.
Yeah, if I try to unpack that, McCoy's finding is absolutely stunning. It means Trelane isn't carbon-based life. He's not even energy-based, not in any way their sensors can understand. He completely defies categorization.
He doesn't register on their life signs scanners at all.
Not at all, which implies his very existence is fundamentally different from anything they know or can even comprehend. He exists outside their entire scientific framework. It suggests maybe a higher state of being, maybe non-corporeal, something that interacts with matter in this totally unique alien way.
So he just is, without any measurable signs?
Pretty much. He just is without the biological or energy signatures that define literally everything else they've ever encountered. This really makes him an unknown type of being, not just an unknown alien species.
That's incredible. And yet this non-existent being, he makes mistakes. Really obvious ones that show he doesn't fully grasp things despite his reality-bending powers.
Like what?
Well, for instance, there's this wood fire captain burning steadily, ember bed glowing. Looks perfect, right? Cozy.
Sounds nice.
Except it doesn't give off any heat at all. It's a perfect illusion, but it doesn't function like a real fire. And then there's the food and wine he conjures for them. McCoy, being McCoy, says bluntly that straw would taste better than his meat, water 100 times better than his brand, and nothing has any taste at all.
Ah, so he gets the look right, but not the substance.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. These repeated errors, these mistakes of essence rather than just form, they lead Spock to a really crucial deduction. He observes, it simply means that Trelane knows all of the Earth forms, but not the substances.
He can copy the appearance, but not the real thing.
Right. He can make it look like a roaring fire or a feast, but he can't replicate the heat, the taste, the actual properties. It's like a child drawing a perfect picture of an apple, but not understanding you're supposed to eat it.
Oh.
And this leads Spock to another critical thought. If he's fallible, he can't be all-powerful, which means he has something helping him. Evidently, a machine, a device, something which does these things for him.
A machine. Like technology is doing the heavy lifting.
That's Spock's hypothesis. What's really interesting here is how Trelane's perfection of form actually reveals his lack of understanding of function or essence. It strongly suggests his power isn't entirely intrinsic, that maybe it's borrowed or simulated, like he's using some incredibly powerful tool, a cosmic cheat sheet, without fully grasping how it all works. He's manipulating reality, sure, but maybe without truly comprehending the underlying mechanics, which actually makes him seem a bit less formidable than he first appeared.
Okay, so if there's a machine, this cosmic cheat sheet, where is it? Kirk and Spock notice something. Trelane never goes very far from this big fancy mirror in his drawing room.
The mirror?
Spock's first thought is maybe it's part of his audience, his ego, feeding his vanity. But Kirk, always thinking strategically, wonders if it's more than that. Could it be the source of his power?
Like a control panel?
Maybe. Kirk speculates it could be a machine with the ability to turn energy into matter guided by thought waves. It would have a very complex memory bank, be extremely sophisticated, like a computer, much more.
That deduction is strategically huge for Kirk. Spock agrees that if this machine is maintaining the whole environment, the breathable air, everything, it has to be immense. Definitely not something small enough to be hidden inside the drawing room.
Right. It's got to be bigger. Planet scale, maybe.
Exactly. And that realization gives Kirk room to maneuver. He knows the mirror might just be the interface, or maybe even a psychological crutch for Trelane's vanity, a channel for the power, but the real power source is bigger, somewhere else, and potentially vulnerable. It wasn't just Trelane himself being all-powerful.
So the vulnerability isn't just the machine, it's also Trelane's own character flaws, his ego.
Precisely. His power seems deeply tied to his self-perception, his need for admiration, making his personality as much a weakness as the potential machine itself.
And as things go on, Trelane's deep, deep immaturity just becomes painfully obvious, glaringly obvious. He actually tells them, I was getting a bit bored until you came. You must stay. I insist.
Wow. Boredom as a motive.
Yeah. He sees them not as, living beings with their own lives and missions, but as toys. Objects to relieve his cosmic boredom. That casual disregard for them is just horrifying. And his creepy interest in the women just underlines this objectification.
Ah, yeah, that part was bad.
He orders them beamed down, immediately calls Lieutenant Uhura a Nubian prize, compares her to the Queen of Sheba and Fair Helen, like she's some historical artifact he's collected. He even tries to force another crew woman to dance.
Yeah.
Just treating them like puppets.
It's deeply offensive, and it provokes one of Spock's most powerful lines, a real philosophical takedown of Trelane. I object to you. I object to intellect without discipline. I object to power without constructive purpose.
That's potent.
It really is. It's not just about Trelane's bad behavior. It's a statement about power itself.
Yeah.
Trelane has this godlike power, right? Shaping reality, creating worlds, but he uses it with the maturity and self-control of a spoiled kid. His boredom, his ego, his need for amusement, that's what drives him. Doesn't matter what the impact is on others. He's the ultimate example of huge capability, completely disconnected from wisdom, responsibility, or any kind of ethical compass. He's basically a child with a cosmic hammer.
So, facing this combination of boundless immaturity and immense power, Kirk realizes pretty quickly that just talking, reasoning, diplomacy, none of that's going to work.
Pointless.
Yeah. He decides he has to make my move with the Field of Honor game. He needs to play directly into Trelane's twisted fascination with conflict and, crucially, his massive ego. So Kirk launches this calculated, really personal attack. He insults Trelane directly.
What does he say?
He says, you don't think, Trelane, that's your problem.
Yeah.
You're a bumbling, inept fool.
Whoa, direct hit on the ego.
Exactly. It's a shocking, deliberate insult designed purely to provoke a specific, powerful, irrational reaction.
That's classic Kirk, isn't it? Using psychology. It's like Sun Tzu, turning the enemy's weaknesses, his ego, his immaturity, his love of sport, right back against him. Kirk's goal is to make Trelane genuinely furious, knowing Trelane would find a simple execution boring. Where's the sport in a simple hanging, he asks him.
Right.
So he offers this royal hunt, predator against predator, puts his own life on the line, but the prize, if Kirk can evade him, is the Enterprise's freedom. He's betting everything on Trelane being too childish and arrogant to resist the drama of the chase.
It's an incredibly risky gamble.
Hugely risky, but it shows Kirk understands Trelane's true childish nature.
So while Kirk is down there playing this dangerous game, the Enterprise up in orbit is having its own weird problems. Spock actually managed to beam Kirk's party back up.
Yeah.
Pretty clever, actually. He just beamed up all life forms in a given area.
Ah, because Trelane doesn't register as a life form.
Exactly. Trelane is not a life form as we know it, so the transporter locks onto everyone else and bypasses whatever force field Trelane had up. Smart move.
Very Spock.
But even with everyone back, Gothos, the planet, or maybe Trelane himself, keeps blocking their escape. Mr. Sulu reports, getting really frustrated, we've been going in circles, cat and mouse game with us as the mouse.
So Trelane's control extends way beyond just the drawing room or the planet surface.
Apparently so.
He can manipulate space itself around the ship, toying with them like they're just a model ship in his playroom. He can literally bend space to keep them trapped, just making a complete mockery of their warp drive, their navigation skills, everything.
So he's not just holding them hostage on the planet. He's made the whole area of space his personal playground.
Seems like it. He's moving the pieces, including the Enterprise, however he wants. It really highlights the terrifying scope of his power and his playful but incredibly dangerous control.
So Kirk, showing incredible courage and focus, beams back down, alone, to face Trelane.
Just him, wow.
Just him. And Trelane immediately sets up this ridiculous trial, accuses Kirk very grandly of treason against the superior authority, conspiracy, and the attempt to foment insurrection.
All for crying out loud.
Right. Then, with maximum drama, sentences Kirk to hang. It's a total sham. Just theater for Trelane's amusement, outcome already decided.
But Kirk doesn't back down, does he?
Not one bit. His defiance is absolute. He tells Trelane straight up, "I haven't come to plead in your court, Trelane. I've come for one purpose, to get back my ship." His goal isn't to win the fake trial. He knows that's impossible. It's to keep provoking Trelane, push him towards that hunt, which is their only real chance.
He stays focused on the mission, even facing death.
He refuses to play Trelane's petty games. He keeps forcing the issue. And the climax, the real turning point, comes when Kirk just refuses to be beaten. Even when Trelane has him cornered, Kirk yells, "But I'm not defeated!" And then in this really symbolic moment, he grabs Trelane's fancy sword and snaps it, breaks it clean in half.
No way!
Yeah, and tells him calmly, "You've got a lot to learn about winning, Trelane." This act, destroying Trelane's prop, defying his authority so directly, it pushes Trelane into a full-on, uncontrollable rage. He's about to unleash serious harm on Kirk.
And that's when
the shocking intervention happens. Just as Trelane's about to lose it completely, these two non-corporeal beings appear. Ethereal, majestic-looking, clearly Trelane's parents. Yeah. And they immediately start scolding Trelane.
Yeah.
Like a naughty child. Their dialogue is crucial. It changes everything. "You're disobedient and cruel. We've told you before. Time to come in now, Trelane."
Oh my God.
And then maybe the most revealing line, "If you cannot take proper care of your pets, you cannot have them at all."
Pets. They see the crew as pets.
Apparently.
Yeah.
And finally, "You'll grow up, Trelane. You'll understand. Now come along." It just raises this huge question. What does it mean for a being with Trelane's reality-bending power to have parents who treat him like a grounded teenager?
It completely flips the script. He goes from this terrifying villain to just a petulant cosmic kid, playing with forces he doesn't understand, and his actions, terrifying to Kirk and the crew, are just seen as childish mischief by his actual guardians.
Wow. And the beings, the parents, they immediately apologize to Kirk. Very clearly, very directly. They say, "You must forgive our child. The fault is ours for indulging him too much. He will be punished."
So they take responsibility.
They do. And they acknowledge the crew, not as toys or pets, but as beings with spirit. They even call them superior to Trelane in terms of maturity. Then, effortlessly, they let the Enterprise go, and the whole impossible planet, Gothos, just vanishes, along with Trelane and his parents. Gone.
Just like that. Swift, complete resolution, which really underlines their own vastly superior power compared to Trelane.
Well, absolutely.
Their apology, fixing the situation immediately, shows not just their power, but the sense of cosmic responsibility. They basically admit Trelane was just playing, but playing without understanding, discipline, or empathy. It forces you to totally reevaluate the whole thing and maybe our place in the universe.
Yeah.
We went from being victims of a godlike bad guy to accidental pets in a cosmic kids game, only to be saved by the cosmic grown-ups. It's a really sobering thought about how beings way beyond us might see us.
So, back on the Enterprise, everyone's trying to process this insanity, trying to fit the incomprehensible into their nice, neat boxes. Mr. Spock, naturally, is struggling. He needs to classify Trelane for the ship's logs, put a label on him.
The need for order.
Right. And he's having trouble finding the words. He throws out things like pure mentality, force of intellect, embodied energy, super being. He insists he must be classified, sir. But the usual scientific language, it just seems inadequate.
And that's fascinating, isn't it? Spock, the absolute pinnacle of logic and classification, is stumped. He has no terms. Trelane truly exists outside their entire known scientific framework. He's not just an unknown alien, he's an unknown kind of being.
Yeah.
He defies every category of life, energy, matter that Starfleet knows. It really highlights the limits of even the most advanced science when you hit something truly new, something that breaks all the rules. It's kind of humbling for that logical mindset.
Dr. McCoy, ever the pragmatist, maybe a bit cynical, he offers his immediate gut reaction label. God of War?
Very McCoy.
Spock, predictably, dismisses that. Well, I hardly find that fitting. Too emotional, too imprecise. But then Kirk steps in, and he offers his final classification. Surprising, maybe, but perhaps the most accurate one.
What does Kirk say?
He says, cutting through all the jargon, then a small boy and a very naughty one at that.
A naughty boy.
Yeah, and he playfully compares Trelane's reality warping and life-threatening actions to ordinary childhood mischief, like dipping little girls' curls in inkwells, stealing apples from the neighbors' trees, tying cans on cats.
That raises a really interesting question, doesn't it? Is Kirk's seemingly simple assessment actually the most profound one? It completely strips away the super being mystique, the godlike power, and gets right to the heart of Trelane's impulsive, self-absorbed, learning by doing nature.
Like a kid testing boundaries.
Exactly. He acts out of boredom, curiosity, with absolutely no grasp of consequences, just like a child exploring their world. So Kirk's classification, while totally unscientific, might offer the deepest insight into what they actually faced. It shifts our view from fearing a villain to understanding the danger of uncontrolled power in the hands of the profoundly immature. It suggests even beings with infinite power still have to learn about growth and responsibility.
And the implications of that, of this cosmic child's play, they're staggering. Just think about Trelane's sheer, unbelievable power creating lethal environments, messing with lives, manipulating reality itself, all for sport or study.
It's terrifying.
It's a chilling thought that such immense power could belong to a being with the maturity, the self-control, the empathy of a toddler. It really makes you think about what happens when cosmic ability is completely separated from cosmic consciousness or responsibility.
Yeah, connecting that to the bigger picture, it forces us to face this really unsettling possibility that there could be beings out there vastly more powerful than us who might look at our entire existence, our struggles, our civilizations, as just entertainment. Or subjects for their experiments, like ants in an ant farm.
A sobering thought about our place in the pecking order.
Definitely. Especially when those superiors are essentially children, prone to whims and tantrums, with no real understanding or care about the consequences of their actions for the ants. It makes you wonder, how many other Trelanes are out there? And are there always cosmic parents around to step in? Maybe not.
So what does this all mean for us listening to this log, this deep dive? It's not just about a cool sci-fi encounter. It feels like a really profound cautionary tale about power without wisdom, about knowledge without empathy, about that huge, sometimes terrifying gap between being able to do something and understanding why you should or shouldn't.
A lesson that applies everywhere.
From the individual level right up to the cosmic. So, thinking back on this whole bizarre journey, what really stands out to you? Were Trelane's actions actually malicious, you think? Or just the unchecked, destructive curiosity of an omnipotent kid?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it leads to another important one. If beings like this, these childlike entities with planet-shaping power, actually exist, what possible safeguards, what ethical rules could ever govern how they interact with less powerful species like us?
Right. We could barely even classify him.
Exactly. We struggle just to comprehend his nature. How could we possibly hope to impose some kind of code of conduct, some universal law on his kind? It really makes you consider the limits of our own ethical reach when we're faced with power that's truly beyond our understanding.
So next time you may be feeling a little small looking up at the stars, remember Gothos. And consider that maybe, just maybe, the biggest dangers out there aren't always from pure evil, but sometimes from a profound, dangerous lack of maturity coupled with limitless power. Maybe the universe isn't just full of wonders, but also full of really tough lessons and growing up lessons that apply even to beings far beyond our wildest comprehension.